And what a wonderful turnout. Thank you, everybody. Welcome guests and welcome everyone. Thank you. Give me your tired, your poor, your troubled masses yearning to be free. Carved in the base of the Statue of Liberty. Build a wall, build a wall. You shall also love the stranger, for you are strangers in the land of Egypt, Deuteronomy. The aliens shall be to you as citizens, Ezekiel. Romans says the mark of a true Christian includes extending hospitality to strangers. Keep them out. Immigrants are the problem. We're a nation of immigrants. Immigrants are what have built this country. Well, of course, since the first Europeans set foot on this continent, we have been a nation of immigrants. North Americans are now just 2% of the population, and all the rest of us are immigrants or descendants thereof. And no matter what side of these issues you're on today, I think there's near universal agreement that our immigration system is broken. So we've designed this series of programs that will include several luncheons and several afternoon sessions. The program is on the slide here, and there are handouts. We'll kick off today with David Grise and Sarah Mills. I'll introduce in a moment. And we'll end with John Yarmouth. And we're hoping in this process to equip ourselves as people of faith and as citizens to better understand, to be able to advocate, and to support immigration system that is just and fair and appropriate. So that's our goal. So today we're going to set the stage with some history of immigration and the current state of immigration law, policy, and the system. So Sarah Mills is a senior immigration attorney over at Kentucky Refugee Ministries. She works not only with refugees, but with other clients on family-based and humanitarian immigration law, including family reunification, naturalization, asylum, removal defense, words that have all become much more familiar to us of late. So Sarah deals every day with people in real-life situations, and nearly every day with real-life changes in policy. David Grise is a member of our congregation who retired after 32 years as the U.S. Department of Justice. During that time, he served as a prosecutor here in Kentucky, a policymaker in Washington, and a diplomat abroad. He now teaches in the legal studies program at Morehead State University. Teaches a class on immigration law. He's going to condense it into 20 minutes here. David became interested in immigration law, particularly during his 3-year struggle to obtain U.S. citizenship for his daughter, Irla. We are grateful you did, because she has stolen all of our hearts. So, David first.
Good afternoon. As Linda said, we are a nation of immigrants, and so immigration has been an issue in the United States since the very beginning. In fact, before the very beginning. And we're going to look at that. We're going to look at a little bit of immigration history, the most I can frame into 20 minutes here. And we're going to look at some parallels, perhaps, between what happened in history and what's happening here today. I want to start out with Benjamin Franklin, one of our quote, founding fathers, who said in 1751, who said in 1751, 25 years before we became a nation, he said that the Germans who come hither are generally of the most ignorant, stupid sort. This was one of his concerns, and he said, why should Pennsylvania, founded by the English, become a colony of aliens? Germans, you see, will never adopt our language or customs any more than they can acquire our complexions. In sum, his concerns are that the people who were coming in were of low quality, that they were basically we were in danger of having our culture overtaken, and the third thing he's concerned about was race. Because, you know, he found the Germans to be swarthy. I don't know how many of you think of Germans as swarthy. I have to deal with German blood in me, and I can't stay on the beach for more than 10 minutes without SPF 106. Anyway, apparently the problem is that the Spaniards, the Italians, the French, the Russians, and even the Swedes are what we call a swarthy complexion, as our Germans. Also, the Saxons only accepted. I want to fast forward a little bit because right after we became a nation, immigration was generally welcomed. In fact, about 1 out of 35 people we meet on the street would have been born overseas. And we had plenty of room, so that was fine. And people who came over were generally like those who were already here, and that was fine too. But we started to get a little bit of a different immigrant starting in the 1840s and 1850s. And so we had some reaction to that. First, however, let's say a little more about the Constitution. When we had the Revolution, we had the Articles of Confederation first, of course, and then we got our Constitution in 1789. And the Constitution says almost nothing about immigration. Almost nothing. It says really just one thing. It says Congress can establish a uniform rule of naturalization. It doesn't say anything about who's in control of what basically the criteria are for coming in or being deported, but it does say Congress can make rules concerning who becomes an American citizen after they're here. And Congress acted on this right away. They immediately passed legislation that said that to be naturalized you had to be white. Now, there was no agreement really as to what white was, but whatever that was, whether it included swarthy Germans or not, you had to be white. Okay? Okay. Now, back to the 1840s and 50s when we started to have this become an issue. In the 1840s, in the United States, some folks established what was called the Order of the Star-Spangled Banner, and there is their Star-Spangled Banner right there. And it is begging people, it says Native Americans beware of foreign influence. People who put their names backwards, apparently. But Native Americans beware of foreign influence, and of course, who are the Native Americans? They're not talking about American Indians, are they? No. We got here first, so even though the country is only about 65 years old, we're Native Americans. We're the ones who belong here, and our culture is the one that leads to the And as a result, the Order of the Star-Spangled Banner, as a result of its growth, it turned into a political party called the American Party. Otherwise known as the Know-Nothings. You heard of the Know-Nothings? The Know-Nothing Party was at least called colloquially the Know-Nothing Party, because if you remember the party, you were asked anything about it, you were supposed to respond, I know nothing. It was a secret. Right? But anyway, their nominee for president in the 1850s was former President Willard Fillmore and Andrew Jackson Donaldson. They got 20% of the vote, and they took the state of Maryland. Anyway, this is one of their publications here, the American Patriot. And I highlighted this, they didn't highlight this down there, but I wanted you just to see what their platform was. It says they're opposed to papal aggression and Roman Catholicism, foreigners holding office, raising foreign military companies in the United States. They're opposed to nunneries and Jesuits. They're proposed to being taxed for the support of foreign paupers. Does this sound familiar? Our tax money is going to foreign paupers. They're opposed to secret foreign orders in the United States. By that, they mean that terrorist group, the Knights of Columbus. I've heard of them. You don't want your daughter to marry one, but you've heard of them. Okay. And it says we are burdened with enormous taxes by foreigners. We're corrupted the morals of our youth. We are interfered with in our government. We are forced into collisions with other nations. We are tampered with in our religion. And we are injured in our labor. Heard that before? We're injured in our labor, and we are assailed in our freedom of speech. That was their platform. And they started basically getting more and more members until something more important happened, which was the Civil War. During the Civil War, we stopped thinking about immigration because we were too busy killing one another. Right? And after the war, we had some amendments to the Constitution, and those amendments to the Constitution were about slavery. 13th, the 14th, and the 15th Amendments we got, okay? But the 14th Amendment said something that had enormous repercussions for immigration, even though it was really directed at slavery. And that is, it said, if I can get it, yes, it said everyone born United States is automatically a citizen. You see, they didn't know what to do with these blacks. Are they citizens or not? How do we determine? They said, oh, anybody who's born here is a citizen, and that makes all the slaves, freed citizens. That's what they wanted to accomplish. What it turned out, though, is to have repercussions for immigration, because now anyone born in the United States is a citizen. And that has repercussions now, and you can see this Tea Party fellow is saying repeal the 14th Amendment because he doesn't like anchor babies. An anchor baby is a baby that foreigners who aren't supposed to be here legally, those that are undocumented, have children here, and their children are automatically U.S. citizens. And that creates a real problem, because the parents are here illegally, and the citizens are children. What do you do with this family? You separate them? Well, in the 1870s, what we were concerned with most is the Irish on the East Coast that were coming in droves after the Civil War had calmed down. There was no more shooting. The Irish started coming in, and the Chinese had come in to work on the railroad on the West Coast, and they were bringing over their relatives. And here we see the Irishmen on the East Coast and the Chinese man on the West Coast, and they're eating Uncle Sam. Can you see that? They're swallowing Uncle Sam, and our country's going to disappear, being consumed by these immigrants. And one of the problems, once again, is that they are largely Roman Catholic. Here we see the Germans and the Irish in the 1880s coming over in droves. And here's pretty much a summary of what people are concerned about. First of all, you can see the Irishman is in a barrel of Irish whiskey. They're all drunks. And the German is in a barrel of lager beer. I was very curious. Why does it just say beer? Why does it have to be lager beer? The answer is the British like ale. So it doesn't say just beer, because the British might be, accused of something too. So it has to say lager beer, which is German beer. Okay. And look what they're doing. They're running away with the ballot box. Oh my gosh, these people are going to vote. And in democracy, that gets to vote as many times as me, and I'm not swarthy. Okay? So this was a horrible problem. And you see there's violence in the background. You see the violence back here. So what this is telling us is these drunks are coming over. They're stealing the government through the ballot. They're causing violence. Okay? In the 1880s. Right? And the worst part of it was, as I said, that they're Roman Catholic. Okay? Waves of people coming over. Can you see? Do you see? Do you see what the alligators are? Yes, exactly. They're bishops and cardinals, and they're minors and they're coming up here. These are all cartoons out of major newspapers of the time, right? They're going to eat it, and this man is guarding the children. You see some Irishman is stealing a child up here, and this woman is being taken to the gallows. If you look carefully, they're going to hang a woman, they're stealing a child. The building crumbled over here says public schools, and the flag is upside down in a distress signal. And of course, all of these ravenous reptiles are coming from the Vatican. All right? They're going to basically change our way of life. Okay. So what have we seen in some of these cartoons? Well, we've seen poverty, and we've seen culture, they're bringing their culture, and we've seen the ballot box, they're going to take over from it. Okay, does this need a self-familiar today? Okay. Oh no, he says they're going to vote, and these are hyphenated Americans. They're not real Americans, they're Irish Americans, they're German Americans, they're Scottish Americans, they're all of these people with hyphens, and they get to vote. And here they are, Uncle Sam is ticked off here, and they're putting their ballots in the ballot box. You can see all these people are divided in half, you see. And that's the way it was viewed. These people aren't real Americans, they're half Americans. Only when they become real Americans should they vote. All the public sentiment behind this, oh my gosh, we're being awash in immigrants, led to some legislation. And in 1882, Congress decided to do something. So they passed the immigration law, and they barred prostitutes, convicts, lunatics, idiots, and those like public charges. I don't know who got to determine those ways. Did it? And it says Congress then and later barred beggars, polygamists, anarchists, the feeble-minded, and epileptics. Now, if I had epilepsy, I would be really ticked. Because I ain't in there with the feeble-minded and the anarchists, because I had epilepsy. After that, then Congress said, well, this will weed out, weed out a lot of the chaff that we don't want here. And Congress then required medical screening. And this is when you start having places like Ellis Island, you have to come through and be checked out and that sort of thing. Make sure you weren't on the terrorist watch list of the day. And all Chinese immigration was prohibited. Nobody could come over. There was a real problem with the Chinese. First of all, they were really different. Second of all, they insisted they were white. Okay? So we just said we couldn't do this based on white because all the Chinese people said, I ain't white. So what they did was no Chinese at all, and that lasted for years and years and years until World War II, and we were allied with the Chinese, and it looked bad to say no Chinese because they were. And along the way also, a lot of Europe was prohibited from coming to the United States at all. Okay, so they thought that solved the problem. It didn't. Because, oh my gosh, the Italians, the Greeks started coming. All right, in 1900, and look at this. Can you tell what the Italians are? Can you see? They're rats. They're rats with human hands. I mean, this is major publication. Here's William McKinley in the corner pointing down saying, I told you so. He's in heaven, by the way, because he was assassinated. And he's pointing down saying, I told you. And here comes, and you see the hats on the Italians who look like monkeys. Say mafia, one of them says socialist, right? And they have knives in their teeth. And they're coming for us, and here's Uncle Sam once again, chagrin at all of this wave of Italian rats. And I'm not saying this didn't appear in marginal publications. I mean, these are the major newspapers of the day, which were the major modes of communication at the time. Okay. And if that wasn't bad enough, oh, we got the Jews. The Jews started coming over en masse, and what was really irritating was that they claimed to be persecuted. And we were supposed to feel sorry for them. And so down here it says, for the exclusive use of the quote, the persecuted, unquote, this liner coming over with all the Jews on it, and they were not only Jews, but a lot of them were Slavic as well. And that was a problem as well, okay? So in 1910, they tried something else. They said, let's have some literacy tests to make sure that these are the right kind of people. By the way, it's not as bad as it sounds, I guess, because the literacy tests were literacy in their own language, not English. But in the United States at that time, a great percentage of the population couldn't read and write. And so you can imagine for these immigrants, how many of them couldn't read and write. And so we were going to turn away these people, and that was going to slow the immigration process. But apparently that wasn't enough. Okay? So in 1921, we developed what's called a quota system. All right? And here's what the quota system was. It is based on the 1910 census. We can only take in 3% of a certain ethnicity, 3% of that ethnicity, based on 3% of the number of that ethnicity in the United States. So if there are 1,000 Norwegians in the United States, right, then we can take 10, or what, 30, or 30. Okay. Somebody got that. If I had that, you count out with the law school. So 30, okay? All right, so just extrapolate on that, and that's what's the way that was going to keep the mix the same, you see. So it was going to keep certain people who comprise most of the population on top, all right? So, that didn't work very well. They figured out too many people were still coming, so they backed it off to 2% the next year. And that's still, they were getting too much, all these foreigners. So what they did was they said, look, we're not using the 1910 census anymore, we're using the 1890 census. We're going to go back to it and say 3% of those, 3% of the people who are in the United States in 1890. Okay. So, here we go. This is still a problem. Here's Uncle Sam once again. Look, danger to American ideas and institutions is what he's clinging to. And we have riffraff immigration coming in. And once again, we have all the people from here. There's some Mexicans and there's some Italians and there's some Greeks and there's some Slavs. And it's a whole wave. Even after this, we were sort of a period of its own, so I'm not going to get into that. But I am going to tell you that in the 1960s, things changed fairly dramatically. We had a civil rights movement, and people were more attuned to racial matters and ethnic matters and matters of nationalism. And so in 1965, those quotas were removed. And instead, we still have some caps and quotas, which Ms. Mills may be talking about. All right? But the criteria now is based on family, profession, and skills. Instead of talking about where you were from, it was more like you have family here that's raised in, you have a job waiting for you here, do you have specific skills that we need in the United States? All right? And Lyndon Johnson, you can see him there, you can see Ted Kennedy there, and Bobby Kennedy, and Hubert Humphrey, all gave statements saying this was not going to impact the number of people coming to the United States at all, and immigration needed to quadruple. Okay? So, immigration then picks up after all these years of lean immigration. All right? I'm going to skip this one. All right. I'm going to talk for just a couple of minutes about the current agenda of the current administration and how it relates. All right? Okay. The president wants to end family migration. In other words, he does not want a program where people who are here can bring their relatives in at all. And that's really I guess, the most popular way to be an immigrant to the United States is having some family members here who sponsor you and bring you over. Wants to end that and make it employment only because it's give me your scientists, give me your PhDs, they're going to be free. No other masses. All right. Then wants to tighten asylum standards. I hate to break this to you, but asylum was really never meant to be for poor people. It's meant to be for persecuted people, and that's a big misunderstanding. We have all these people at the border applying for asylum who say I'm desperately poor, there are no jobs where I am, the sanitation is bad, the medical care is bad, and they're looking and saying no. And you want to blame the United States for not letting them in at the same time. The people down there they're asking for admission under a law that says not being persecuted in my own country. And being poor is not being persecuted in a place where everybody else is poor. All right? Anyway, he wants to tighten those asylum standards because under the Obama administration, they expanded a little bit to provide for legacy people who were, for example, subject to domestic violence, right, or gang violence, and the Trump administration is taking those away. Okay, he wants to abolish the diversity lottery. We have something called the diversity lottery now. And the diversity lottery is basically to allow people in the United States people in the world from countries that don't send us many people. They have several thousand maybe they can bring over in a year, and they actually apply and they're drawn out of a hat. That was very big in Albania when I was there. People would help you with your diversity lottery. And I know somebody who was running a pizza place in Albany, New York, won the diversity lottery, came to the United States. The administration wants to punish sanctuary cities. A sanctuary city is that city that says that our local government is not going to cooperate with the federal government in enforcing immigration laws. And you may look at that and you say, how can a local government say we're not going to cooperate? Well, why in the world? And why in the world do the police departments there, who are supposed to be enforcing the law, say we're not going to cooperate with bringing in undocumented aliens? And let me tell you why the police, as somebody who was in law enforcement a long time, I'll tell you why the police don't want to cooperate with that. Because somebody who is undocumented, who is the victim of a crime, does not report that crime. Somebody who is a witness to a crime does not cooperate as a witness if they're undocumented because they're going to be swooped up and they're going to be deported. And so what this does sometimes is it makes it, first of all, open season. You can mug an illegal immigrant if you want to because they're trapped. They can't be reported you. Right? Or if you're in the immigrant community and all the people around you are undocumented, you can kill a member of your family or a friend and get away with it because nobody's going to testify because anybody who goes to authorities will be deported. And so a lot of cities says, no, we'd rather enforce the criminal law than scoop up undocumented. Okay? The administration wants to revoke temporary protected status. Temporary protected status is people who come over here because there was an emergency in their home country, like mudslides, hurricane, civil war, that sort of thing. So we let a certain amount of people in, but the law says they're supposed to go home when the emergency's over, and they don't want to. And they've had kids here who are now U.S. citizens. What do we do? What do we do? Okay? Generally, Congress just says, okay, 18 more months. Okay, 18 more months. And then now they've been here for 10 years. And if they had a job the whole time and they're established, and they've got a house and 2 kids in school or whatever, and now we say, oh. Yeah, it's a very hard situation. In fact, it wants to reduce the caps. The President of the United States, as I said, the Constitution does not say hardly anything about immigration. And as a result, the President of the United States has, according to the courts, more leeway in immigration matters than perhaps any other legal subject. All right? So it's almost all allowed on the President. Okay. And zero tolerance. To cross the border illegally is a misdemeanor. To cross it after being deported is a felony. The Obama administration says don't prosecute people for the misdemeanors, just kick them back over the border. Okay? The Trump administration says no, everybody gets charged with a crime, which is why we have such an incredible backlog down there. Everybody's being charged with this misdemeanor crime. All right? Okay, now, I'm going to go to the end here because I am out of time. Okay? The last thing I want to talk to you about is Governor Clifford Walker, who gave a speech in 1924. He was governor of Georgia at the time. And his remark to this giant crowd of people was America should build a wall of steel, a wall as high as heaven against the flow of illegal immigration. And he gave that speech in 1924 to the second annual convention of the Ku Klux Klan. You got standing ovation. Anyway, so, we'll be available to answer questions with Ms. Mills.
Are you going to mention the children that came for medical care? That was the news this past week.
The children who came here for medical care, you can come here temporarily for medical care, and that's pretty easy actually to come here temporarily. To come here to stay is a totally different, is a very difficult thing because you have to run the drills. Anyway.
Good morning, how are you all? My name is Sarah Mills. I'm the senior immigration attorney across the street at KRM. I've been at KRM almost 6 years, practicing family-based and humanitarian immigration law. I put this up here just because I think one of the big misconceptions about immigration is that there is a pathway for everyone to come here legally, and there's really not. Our laws are pretty restrictive, so most people in the world do not have a way to come to the United States legally. I really just practiced in the first 2 areas, so I'm not going to talk about employment or the diversity lottery, but those are other pathways to legal permanent residency. Family-based immigration, that is for either permanent residents or U.S. citizens can apply to bring their immediate relatives. So it's limited to just the immediate family. That would be parents, spouses, children, siblings, and fiancés. So there are no visas for extended family. You can't apply for aunts, uncle, or cousin. So it's fairly limited. And then under the humanitarian grounds, there's a lot of different immigration statuses. I would put refugee status in there. Asylum is really similar to refugee status. The main difference is that you're applying for asylum here within the United States. You have to prove that you will be persecuted in your home country based on one of 5 protected grounds, like religion or political opinion or membership in a particular social group. And I'm going to kind of concentrate on some of the recent changes to asylum law. We also work with victims of crime, U visas, victims of trafficking, DACA, temporary protected status. I will say there are a lot of, David mentioned that temporary protected status has been revoked for most countries. Haiti was one of those countries, and there, in 2010 after the earthquake, they were granted temporary protected status, and a lot of Haitians were evacuated to Louisville, and we've been working with them for the past 10 years. They've now, many of my clients are paralyzed, they have U.S. citizen children, and now they're being forced to return to Haiti, and conditions have not really improved there. So that's going to happen in January. This is called the Visa Bulletin straightforward, easy way to bring your family members. There's really not. So how quickly you would come to the United States depends on 3 factors. So one would be the person petitioning for you. Are they a permanent resident or are they a U.S. citizen? 2 is the degree of relationship. Is it a minor child you're bringing or is it a married adult child? And 3 would be what country they're from, because there are caps on immigration from each country. If you look down here, China, India, Mexico, and the Philippines send more immigrants to the United States, so that's why their wait times are longer. So I'll just give you an example. If I am a U.S. citizen and I'm originally from Mexico and I just got my citizenship, I'm excited, I'm going to meet with the immigration attorney, I'm going to bring my kids here finally, and I have a 25-year-old daughter who's unmarried, she would be category, if you look at the top, F1, unmarried daughter of U.S. citizen. She lives in Mexico, so she's got a special wait time. So you look at category F1, and in Mexico, the date here is August, and this visa bulletin is for this month, so this is a current visa bulletin. So the date says August 1st, 1996. That means if I started the process for my daughter on or before August 1996, there's now a visa available for her and she can come to the United States. But I just got my citizenship, so I'm petitioning today. So you subtract that amount of time, it's 23 years, I think. Yeah, so it's a 23-year wait if I apply for my daughter today, and that's really misleading. It's not 23 years, it's more like 40 or 50 years potentially, because this doesn't move 1 month at a time. If you go back and check it in September, it's probably not going to say September 1996. And so that's a very long wait time. As you can see from Mexico, they're mostly all really long wait times. But even for the countries that are not limited by these extra wait times, it's very, very difficult to bring a family. If you look at category F3, married son or daughter of U.S. citizen, so I'll say I'm a U.S. citizen and my daughter lives in Italy and she's an Italian citizen and she's married. That's F3 under the first category, 2007. So it's still a 12-year wait. So just so you understand, it's a long time to bring a family here. So even with the family reunification system that we do have, it's very limited and people have to wait years and years, and it's also very expensive. This is another issue with family reunification. That's a big area of our practice, is filing petitions to bring family members to the United States. Last year, the Supreme Court upheld the travel ban. There was 3 different iterations of the travel ban, and the last one included North Korea and Venezuela, but that's a little bit misleading because there's no immigration from North Korea because they can't leave their country. Like a few North Koreans make it here every year, so it's banning basically no one. And Venezuela, only diplomats are banned, so anyone else can still get a visa, so it's not really a ban. But the countries in the middle there, including Somalia, that just bans everyone from that country. And so just to give you an example, there's a sizable Somali population global, and a lot of my clients are Somalis. So I'm representing now a man who came through KRM as a refugee, I want to say in 2014. He immediately petitioned to bring his wife and 2 daughters to the United States as refugees. The process took about 3 years to reunite with his wife and daughters. During that time, it was a long delay, so he decided to travel back and visit them during the case. His wife became pregnant, and he was very excited to come back and tell me they're having a new baby. And I had to tell him, well, you can't bring that daughter because the refugee program only allows you to bring people where the relationship existed at the time you entered as a refugee. But there's another way to bring her. So we started a case for the daughter right after she was born in 2016. About a year later, the wife and the older daughters were allowed to come to the United States, and they had to take that opportunity because you never know if you're going to get another chance. And so they came, and they had to leave the 10-month-old baby behind, and then the travel ban happened. And so even though both of her parents are Somali, so she's Somali, that's her nationality. She's never been to Somalia. She's only 3 years old. She's clearly not a threat to national security, but she's banned. And it doesn't matter if her dad gets citizenship. It's just a straight-out ban on Somali people coming to the United States. So this has been very difficult explaining that to clients. I have a lot of Somali people that are trying to bring their spouses. There's really no way around it. There is an exception to the travel ban, but there's been no guidance from the government, and there's really no legal standard for it, and it's totally okay, and we don't really know who gets away with it, who doesn't. I don't know if you can see this, it's a little small, but this, I want to talk briefly about the immigration court. There's a lot of problems I see with the immigration court. The immigration, you hear courts, and I think you might think the judiciary, but it is under the executive branch. The immigration court is housed under the Department of Justice, and it is overseen by the Attorney General. And so the immigration court, I think, functions fairly similar to a criminal court. There's a judge who works for the Department of Justice. There's a trial attorney who basically acts as a prosecutor. The trial attorneys work for ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, which is a part of DHS. And then there's the respondent, which is similar to a defendant in criminal court. And so the respondent or the immigrant is charged with something. Their charge is that they're removable from the United States. Most of my clients are removable because they didn't come here with a visa. And so you're charged with that, you plead to that, and then you can present defenses. And often what your defense is going to be is asylum. And there have been so many changes to the asylum laws in the last 2 years, it's really difficult to even keep up with it. Sometimes I feel like I go to work every Monday and there's like a new policy change. We'll take a case, the client pays us, we tell them, you know, I think this is a decent case, maybe we can win this. 6 months later, the law changes and they have no possibility of relief. So the immigration court is really not an independent body. And one problem with it is the Attorney General hires the immigration judges. He has set case quotas for them, so they have to complete a certain amount of cases, which these cases can take a while. So if you increase the number of cases each judge has to do each year, probably more people are going to be ordered deported. Let's see. Some of the changes that have happened, one thing I think that's very interesting about the immigration court is that if you win at the trial court level, if you lose or if you win, the case could be appealed to the Board of Immigration Appeals, which is right above that. So if I win an asylum case, the DHS attorney can still appeal that to the Board of Immigration Appeals. Let's say we win again at the Board of Immigration Appeals, but the Attorney General just doesn't like the decision, he can certify that case to himself and just rewrite the law and make it precedent for all asylum cases. And so it's just one person rewriting law that's developed over years and years through the immigration court. And that's happened a lot over the past 2 years. Two of the most high-profile certifications to the Attorney General were a case called Matter of AD and a case called Matter of LEA. So what Matter of AD is really an attempt to restrict asylum for victims of domestic violence and gang violence. A lot of the Central Americans that are coming here, their claims center around gang violence and domestic violence. There was really pretty settled case law about domestic violence being a ground for asylum, but the Attorney General kind of tried to rewrite that. You can still apply, and we still do those cases. I would say it's impossible to win without an attorney, but we just kind of have to see where that goes. Those cases will be appealed to the Sixth Circuit or whatever circuit they're in, and we'll see what the federal courts do with those cases. But it does lead to a situation where there's just zero predictability. You don't know what the law is going to be because it can just change tomorrow, and that happens over and over. And so it is difficult to know how to advise a client, and sometimes they're just paying attorneys for nothing because you take the case, you think, you know, maybe you can win, and then the law changes 3 months later and they have nothing. I would say one of the greatest injustices in the immigration court is that you're not going to be afforded an attorney if you cannot afford one. You're not going to be provided an attorney if you cannot afford one. So you do have a right to counsel in immigration proceedings, but if you can't afford an attorney, there's not going to be one provided at the government's expense, and it's very difficult to win an asylum case without representation. It's highly technical. You have to bring in witnesses. You need to collect evidence. There's a cross-examination. You really need an attorney, and where that is most unjust is that a lot of children are in deportation proceedings. And I have represented children who are as young as 18 months old. And if we didn't take that case, then nobody would, and that kid would be ordered deported because there's really just no way that a child at that age can represent themselves.
What they make children when they're 18 months old? Do they just take them somewhere and put them on a bus?
What will happen if they're deported?
Uh-huh.
I don't really know, honestly. We've never lost a case. So all the cases that we've taken, nobody's been ordered deported. So I don't really know what they do with the kids when they deport them. Hopefully I won't have to find out. So I just wanted to highlight a couple things that I think most immigration attorneys agree would add some measure of due process to the immigration court. There's a lot of suggestions that the immigration court should be made an Article 1 court, that Congress could set up an Article 1 court to take it out of the executive branch so that it would be more independent. Some cities have started universal representation in immigration court. Through the city, they fund basically like public defenders for people in immigration proceedings. And I believe detention should be limited. It's very costly to detain all these people. And when people are detained on the border, well, when people are detained anywhere, their grant rate of asylum drops significantly. It's very hard to win an asylum case when you're detained. Number one, it's hard to find an attorney. Number two, it's hard to gather evidence and witnesses. It's just hard to prep for the case when you're in a detention facility. And when people are clustered along the border instead of being released and put into removal proceedings across the country, it really puts a lot of pressure on the attorneys in that region. And of course, there's more attorneys on the border than there are in Kentucky, but the system, I think, works better if people spread out. So when people come to the border to ask for asylum, they're detained, and if they pass a credible fear interview, one of two things can happen. They'll either stay in detention for about a year or so while their case is heard, or they'll be released, and they're put into deportation proceedings. They have an ankle monitor, they have to check in with ICE. They're not free, but they can then reunite with their family members who can help them get an attorney, and they can work the case from outside of detention, which I think is, you're way more likely to win. So, it's definitely helpful to your case if you can do it outside of the detention facility. And I think that's probably 15 minutes. Yeah. Okay.
So now it's time for your questions or observations. Go ahead, Jamie.
Okay, they just changed the wealth, you know, if they want, no one will come in, yes. I wanted to know, what part of that does the means test?
Okay, that's a good question. So,
Could you repeat the question, please?
so her question was about, in the news recently, there was a lot of reporting about the administration changed the public charge rule to kind of expand like, who might be subject to that. So when you apply for permanent residency, say your family's bringing you here, not only do you have to prove that relationship, you have to show that you're admissible, which means like no convictions for serious crime, no immigration violations, and one of those grounds is that you're not likely to become a public charge, so you're not likely to become reliant on the government. And that's always been part of the immigration laws. It's just a little kind of expanded, and that'll go into effect on October 15th. So we don't know exactly how the embassies are going to interpret that, but I definitely think it's going to make it harder for our clients to bring their family members here. All of the clients I work with are low income, and so if we can't prove to the government's satisfaction that that person won't become dependent on public benefits, then they just won't get the visa. So it's still a little up in the air about how it's going to be interpreted.
One of the reasons in 1965 that they made immigration part of the family base is not only does that reunite families, which we've always believed was a good thing, but the other thing is that when people come to the United States, they have a support system, which pleases the left because they have more chance of success and pleases the right because they don't set up for welfare. Okay? And so that's part of the reason we have a family system in the first place. I brought something for show and tell that I ran out of time. I didn't show you. I wanted to show you that this book, which is I don't know, I'm on page 2000 now. is the statutes and the rules for immigration cases in the United States. Now, this doesn't include any of those judicial opinions which Ms. Mills was talking about, which are in volumes and volumes and volumes. But when I had to struggle for 3 years to get my daughter U.S. citizenship, and including it, we had to stay out of the country for 2 years while we're trying to do it. But I kept looking at this, and I kept having the same thought over and over and over again, which was, if I did not speak English, if I did not have an education, and I went to law school, and I'm really struggling with this. And in fact, I got home 18 months earlier just because I had worked at a U.S. embassy and knew where to find a policy manual, which had an exception, which allowed me to move up 18 months. And I'm like, how in the world can anyone without the representation of a lawyer handle this? And then I started looking it up, and I found out your chances of winning an immigration case increase 10 times if you are represented by somebody. 10 times. And you can imagine the confusion of these people put in a system. They have no idea where they are. They don't speak the language. They don't understand what's happening to them. And they have almost no chance of success at the same time. It's really disturbing.
Because this is a part of the executive branch, if Congress passed a law on these issues, does it set it up for a direct confrontation with the executive branch? Or is there a way for Congress to have any impact?
Congress passes like the immigration laws and statutes, so that, so it's just that the immigration court is under the executive branch, but it could be moved. It doesn't have to stay there.
Okay, that was kind of,
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't have to stay. That's right. The laws provide the Attorney General and the President an enormous amount of discretion. Right now, they can change the law. They can change the law. There's two factors over here.
Can you clarify, because a lot of the discussion throughout history has been, you know, what different categories of immigrants, which public services they can receive. Can you clarify, because my understanding of like some of the public charges areas that they aren't eligible, like these abortion aren't eligible regardless for what we might call welfare, or can you clarify who is and who isn't?
I can take that. So the reporting on the public charge, I think, was very confusing, and it really focused on, I felt like what the reporting focused on was not actually how the law is going to impact people. There was a lot of reporting about like people, if they get public benefits, then they can't get permanent residency. Almost none of those people would ever be eligible for public benefits. So they're not going to get the public benefits in the first place. The impact that I think is going to be on our clients is how the embassies interpret the new public charge regulation to decide, is this person likely to get them? But an undocumented person here has no right to get public benefits. And I think anyone that would be applying, there may be some categories of immigrants that I just have never come across who's like undocumented and they're here and they're applying. Maybe there's some small category that can get public benefits, but not that I know of. Like the vast majority of people just can't get them. So I think the reporting on the public benefits is a little bit.
So once they receive asylum or and they've gotten a final determination, are there any public benefits that they are not eligible? I guess I'm just trying to clarify in my mind.
Well, and refugees and asylees are exempted from the public charge. They can receive public benefits, but they're not undocumented, and so that new law doesn't even apply to them. But yeah, refugees and asylees can get Medicaid.
All right, Clyde.
David, has the Supreme Court interpreted the natural born provision of the 14th Amendment, or is it still unknown whether everybody, under all circumstances, who's born in the U.S. is automatically a citizen?
Right
For example,
now, the Supreme Court has said that anybody born within the jurisdiction of the United States is a citizen of the United States. Right. And so, and by the way, I think we're one of 3 countries in the world that say if you're born here, you're automatically a citizen.
So if somebody flies from some other country to New York to have a baby and immediately goes back home, that baby is automatic?
That's right, and, you know, and it is true that especially the Chinese right now like to send people over who are early in their pregnancies, and they stay here, they have babies, and the plan is to go back to China, but now they can more easily get into schools and to universities in the United States 20 years later. And that's the problem with family separation. When you hear about DACA a lot, about these dreamers, these kids who are U.S. citizens because they were born here, but their parents came in, EWI, which is entry without inspection, which means undocumented. So we've got their parents who are technically here undocumented and are subject to deportation, and once again, we've got the kids here, or the dreamers are actually, the DACA kids are actually children who were brought here when they were 2 or 3. And so, on the one hand, they were brought here at such a young age. Of course, they had no control over whether they'd be brought here or not. It's not like they've done something wrong, you know. But they've been over here since they were age 2 or 3, and the question is, they're here and they're undocumented. They don't know any other country, they don't know any other language, whatever. But every once in a while you see an article in the paper about somebody who has been deported to a country back to a country that they don't even remember.
Well, that's
Larry.
So you showed us the chart with the 23-year. Like if we added up all those cases, how big is the number in all those categories? Are there millions of them, or are we talking about?
Yeah, it is over 1 million. Yeah, and they're also, as far as one of the big problems with the system is delay, because we've never had the infrastructure, legal infrastructure to handle all this. For example, there are well over 100, probably over 200,000 people in line to be deported in the United States. We've got orders to be deported, and we haven't moved them out of the country yet. You know, so all over the place, the problem is delay, and also it used to be. This is one of the ways we got into some trouble. If you showed up at the border and asked for asylum, and you weren't a criminal, you couldn't prove you were a criminal, they let you in and they said, here, come back to court on this date. And it would be 2 years before you had a hearing. They wanted to do the people in jail first, right? To get them out so they didn't have to sit there. But it would be 2 years before you get a hearing. Well, and you get 2 years in the United States. And this is what a lot of conservatives have said, this has been a terrible problem because somebody just shows up at the border, all they have to do is say the magic word asylum, and they get 2 years in the United States, and they get established here, and then they say, hey, it's wrong for you to get rid of me because I'm established here, and I haven't committed any crimes for the last couple of years, and so I'm a good citizen, and whatever, you know. And so that's their problems with it.
Just one other, you mentioned the number of immigrants we detain in the country. How big is that number? How many immigrants are in these centers all across the country waiting?
You can't get a good figure.
Okay.
Nobody wants to get a good figure.
Okay.
Nobody wants to get a good figure.
Okay.
Do you have a ballpark?
I mean, it's tens of thousands, but it's
I mainly only look at the army. I try not to.
So, maybe of the 200,000 people that are waiting, maybe some of these detention centers waiting.
some of them are, but if you've been waiting for, you know, up to 2 years, you're probably actually in the country.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, they prioritize detained cases, but it can still take about a year. So I work with a lot of Cubans that are coming into the United States, and they're mainly being detained in centers in Louisiana, and a good amount of them have won their cases, but it's about 10 to 14 months that they wait in the detention facility before their cases are.
You talked a little bit at some point about the limiting people coming in, they wanted scientists and these people with degrees and so on and so forth. We've voluntarily come up against people who are doctors, nurses, lawyers, in all in their own countries, particularly Cuba. The medical people in Cuba are very good. None of them are acceptable in this country.
Right.
They all started.
They're not licensed in the country,
Why?
so they end up doing jobs very different from the ones very much.
Right, but why do we not use them?
Well, I also think it's a misconception that everyone that's coming here and asking for asylum is uneducated or don't have skills. That's not true. It's a very diverse group of people, and I think it takes all kinds for a successful country. But I just don't think that's true that people that are coming here are not, that they're all unskilled or uneducated.
Well, isn't that the art that you're talking about? So refugees are here legally.
Right.
They have been through a multi-year vet vetting process, and so they're here legally, as you know. So what you're talking about is, I believe, is now the medical profession says, but you're not licensed to be a doctor in this country
Right, so you
without
have to start
doctoral. So that's really on beyond the immigration system. That's really the professions that are saying, you might be a lawyer somewhere else, you can't.
But it sort of points at the hypocrisy of this claim that, well, you can't come unless you're a doctor. When you get here, you want to practice as a doctor or an engineer or.
That's like a license in your town.
They came in the 50s.
Okay, somebody else? Yeah, go ahead.
I have a question, but I'd like to make a short statement first, to explain it. Right now, California is protecting their illegal aliens because they need people there for jobs and so forth. Right now, New England is begging for people to move to New England to pay taxes, do all the things that people do in New England, but everybody's moving out. Is it possible for them to go to Texas and recruit people? Illegal aliens. Come up there and become.
First, you want to say something about the term illegal alien versus undocumented person.
I wouldn't use the term illegal alien because it's offensive, I think, to those people. Undocumented is their status. But as far as that, I think people generally will move where there's jobs. So if there are a lot of open jobs and people, I imagine it's really expensive in the Northeast, but I think, people will migrate where the jobs are. I have clients that come in as refugees all the time when they leave Kentucky to go. A lot of Congolese people have moved to Maine. I don't understand it, but it must be like a good job market up there or something, I've noticed. And you see that over time, people will migrate where the jobs are. So.
At one point in history of the United States, we had a guest worker program. That was in World War II, and we had hundreds of thousands of Mexicans who were basically farming the farms when the farmers were now overseas in uniform. And so a number of people have suggested at some point maybe we could have a guest worker program again where you wouldn't be a citizen, but you could come and work. And other people are terribly opposed to that because they said basically that's going to create two classes of people in the United States. And we don't have two classes of people in the United States, we have one class. And so there's a big controversy. By the way, I visited China for 3 weeks, and because I went to Tibet, I had a handler who was with me, I wanted to make sure I didn't get into trouble or anything. And we were sitting at the airport waiting to get on the plane to get out of Tibet, and he was explaining to me how China had an absolute classless society. It was communist, it was classless, everybody was exactly the same. But he was interrupted by an announcement that said, first class passengers.
All right, any wrap up, any questions? Well, let's thank our speakers.